In a previous episode, we talked about Enneagrams, and Ann Gadd has agreed to stay a little bit and go into each Enneagram personality. So if you want to learn more, this is it, guys.
Okay, this is very briefly rundown of the personality types, and I must just say again, the Enneagram is not a personality profiling system, although that is the first step in understanding yourself. You know, the Oracle of Delphi, man know thyself, this is that. Okay, but once we understand ourselves, that's when the work begins, really. So, quick rundown of the Enneagram types. One of the ways that you can break the Enneagram down into three sections of three, would be the head types, those who use thinking primarily, and then the heart types who use feeling primarily, and then the gut or instinctual types, so it's a gut instinct. Now, this is normally where the wounding lies, as opposed to the fact that it doesn't make head types unable to feel, and it doesn't make gut types unable to think. But it's just the kind of first port of call, and very often where the wounding lies. So, we'll start off with type 8, which is a gut instinctual type. So, the gut anger is the issue for all three types, and 8s project their anger outwards. So 8s, when you meet them, they can pick out people who don't talk straight away. Okay, there's no bullshit with them. They're confrontational. They actually enjoy confronting. They're go-getters. They head into the world with purpose, and it sort of sometimes feels to them that they're like going up this hill the whole time, ding, ding, ding. And they're A-type personalities. What they see is what they want. So lust is their issue. Not necessarily from a sexual point of view, but just there's an immediacy about lust. And anger brings you very much into the present. You can't get angry in the future or angry in the past. When you're angry, you are very much present now. And that would typify the 8 personality. They've got big hearts, and they are very supportive at their best of those who they feel have been victims or downtrodden. So they like being the coach of the team for underprivileged kids, and building up that team, and helping others who are not as strong as they perceive themselves to be. But of course, behind that facade, there is actually a fearful child. There's a child who feels vulnerable, and hence their my way or the highway kind of thinking, because it's to mask that. Should we move on to the...
Yes, actually I had a thought while you were, believe it or not, while you were describing this,
Yeah.
is that Professor Majid Ali says that the gut is the seat of anger.
Yes.
Which makes me think that surely then you can link your health issues to your personality type. And if you're a very angry person with anger management issues, you're bound to have a gut issue.
Absolutely, and I think this is an amazing study, and we're going a bit off the thing, but I would just love to get to the point with the Enneagram that doctors would know, okay, there are this personality type, this is the area I must look for issues, because it's there, it's just that nobody's really gone into it and explored it, but it's very, very much there. But of course, 8s getting their anger out, they're not afraid to. It's more the 9s and the 1s who have anger issues, who are inclined to hold it in, who's probably at more danger.
Right.
The 8's going to be like hyped up, and he's going to be, you know, it's as I said, it's A-type personality stuff that's going to be a problem there.
And that's what you need to learn, is be aware of yourself and not just do what you're told to do, but understand why.
Absolutely.
Why do I need to get that anger out?
And be aware that you have, when you, and we all go up and down in terms of health, you know, I'm talking emotional health now. When we start sliding down, there is the tendency to objectify people and see people as objects to be controlled, as opposed to understanding that they have their own needs, wants, and desires that may not correspond with ours, and to be okay with that.
Right.
So if you meet an 8, the idea is to look them in the eye, shake their hand firmly. They like that stuff.
Right.
It's like the juice of life. They want you to, what's the, Rod Susskind says, they want you to walk into the fire with them. They want to be vital. And a lot of they get fired up when they feel that they're alive. Okay, so that's the 8. Then we have the 9, known as the Peacemaker. Now, their issue is sloth or laziness, and it can be a physical laziness, but it's more often, more common, the inability to show up for yourself. So 9s are so accommodating, it's incredible. They'll just go along with anyone, and they'll order in the restaurant pretty much what other people are ordering, even if it's not really what they want, because they're not even sure what they want. So what's happened with them as a child, they've learned that the best way to keep the peace is to suppress their anger, okay, and then just to go along with everyone, not create a ripple. But what sits there, and what most 9s are completely unaware of, is how much anger they're holding on to.
Right.
Because how can I be peaceful if I'm angry? I can't be. So then I can't be angry.
Okay, and they suppress some more.
And they suppress some more. And it does come out occasionally in this like, and then it's like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? You know,
Yes.
and then it's quickly push, you know.
Right. Must be a shock to everybody around them.
Yeah, everyone likes 9s. They're just the nicest people.
They are.
And they're very kind in doing things for others. But so their path towards integration would be to learn to find their voice, to actually discover that they do have an opinion, and then, scary stuff, learn to actually voice it. And you know what? The world doesn't stop, because they think it might, but it actually doesn't. So that's your 9. And then 1s also have the issue of anger, but they get angry when people don't do things the right way. Now, 1s just have this gut instinct of the right way to do things. And it's so obvious to them. I mean, your hair, you should just do that and that, and then that would be perfect. But you don't get it. So 1s have to tell you. They have very strong opinions. They'll tell you what you should do, which other people find a tad offensive.
All right.
Because sometimes part of the 1's lesson would be to learn that my way isn't the only way. And that my concept of perfectionism is not absolutely perfect. So when 1s start healing, they start realizing that actually it's okay for it not to be okay. And to be able to relax with that, and to realize that other people have opinions, and that's great. All 3 types have issues with autonomy, so they all seek independence, and none of them like to be ruled or governed by anyone. So that's an issue that comes with all 3 of them. And 1s tend to be, they love detail. So you'll find them often as bookkeepers and accountants, the doing people in the company. They're very hard workers. And they like that because it's the right thing to do, to work hard. So when they move towards a 7, they become more joyful, more able to let their hair down, have more fun.
Right. You said something move towards a 7.
They're numbers that we move towards, and they're numbers we move away from. It's like the wings are the numbers on either sides of us. So let's say we're a 5, our wing may be a 4 or a 3. And that's like, would flavor us. So if you were to take us as a chicken stew, and if we to move towards the curry side of, say, the 4, then we'd have a slight curry flavor. But it would still remain a chicken stew with a slight curry flavor. Or the other side, we might move towards chicken a la king, let's say. So we'd move toward the cream side of the chicken.
Right.
But we're still a chicken stew. And so that's how I see the wings. And some people have very strong wings, some people don't have any wings at all, some people have 2 wings, and the wings change in your life.
Right.
So
you can have a stage of your life with a very strong left wing, and another stage with
not
your life
left
with a
wing or
very
right wing.
strong
That's now we're going no, but the number on either side of
Yes.
you. So let's say an 8 with a 9 wing makes a very good boss, because they've got that strength of the 8 and the ability to lead, but they've got that gentler side of the peacemaker So they would tend to lead from behind, which is a kind of gentler, more intuitive way of leading. Would make the difference. Where is if you took that 9 with a 1 wing, they would be less slobbish. They would be more ordered in their approach to life.
And the moving towards?
And the moving towards is the numbers that we have the most access to their trays. So as a 9, you would have access to a 6 and a 3, because those are the numbers that link to yours.
Right.
So you might adopt certain aspects of those numbers. And then you would go across to those numbers at the level of health which you were.
But I remember you saying in our course that you can't move. Not every number can move across to every other number.
No. So that's why, like as a 9, you have access to a 6 and a 3, which is you'd have access to those trays, which would probably make you more empathetic to a 6 and a 3 because you kind of get them, because it's like part of yourself. Whereas a 2 that you don't have access to, it would be harder for you to access understanding because you just don't get it.
Right.
Unless you're very healthy, then you would. Because the more integrated we become, the more we take on the traits of all the numbers. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the more feeling types, or types who have issues in terms of their feelings, and the issues tends to be shame. And shame holds us in the past. So we've done the first 3 numbers, we're present, and this tends to focus on the past. So they often say, yes, I felt like that, or this makes me think of when, kind of feeling. So 2s come into the world believing that they will be good people as long as they do kind deeds for other people. So these are the guys organizing the school, or girls, organizing the school fetes, helping other people, charity organizations, all those kind of things. And that's wonderful when it's done completely without the need for reciprocation. But the 2's issue is pride. So they pride themselves on the fact that the world couldn't really do without them and all the good things that they do. And so what happens is this need to give to get. And unfortunately, most 2's are unable to see that that's why they're doing all these good deeds. Me? Pride? No. I mean, what would the world do without me? So that's where that comes in. And obviously, part of their growth path would be to learn to get to the point that they give without the need for reciprocation. If they slip down, then you go more towards that martyrish thing, like, don't you worry, I'll stay here and do all the washing up. You guys go and have fun. Don't worry about me, kind of attitude. So they become blaming. They become very manipulative. They can even develop illnesses to get the attention that they haven't been getting.
Right.
It's the unhealthy side. The unhealthy side, they're very good in nature. They're the earth mother of the world. So they work wonderfully in nature in terms of working with plants and animals and things like that.
And the third one?
And type 3 has this thing that I feel separated from the divine, from all that is, and that's an uncomfortable feeling. So it's almost about denial to myself that I'm feeling uncomfortable. So 3's issues, vainglory or vanity, and deceit. So they're very good at goal setting. They're very ambitious. They achieve a lot in the world. And when they go towards that 6 side of themselves, it tends to be for the higher good of all mankind. But if they disintegrate, it becomes completely self-serving, self-gratification. It's all about the self. And then they create this persona of success on the outside to mask that inside they secretly feel rather empty. Mm-hmm. And in that emptiness, they often lose complete touch with what it is they really want to do, because they were always doing something to impress someone or something.
So these are the people that are all the time on Facebook showing this facade of their life. It's not really
Instagram,
real.
this is my wonderful meal, this is my amazing boyfriend,
Right.
this is my trip overseas, that kind of thing. And it masks a hollow feeling that what if the world finds out that I'm really actually not this person?
Right.
And if you think of the movie The Devil Wears Prada, Meryl Streep was a perfect example of that.
Right.
So it's all about outworldly success. They call them the chameleons of the world because they adapt according to the environment they're in. So if they're with a bunch of hippies in Noordhoek, they'd be a successful hippie in Noordhoek, dressing like a hippie, but they're still a 3, trying to find a way to get to the top.
Right.
Likewise in Joburg, you'll find a lot of them in Armani suits and working their way up the corporate world. They're good in corporate situations because they know how to work the system. So that's the 3. Okay, so now we move on to type number 4, the individualist, or classically the archetype of an artist. Doesn't mean to say that all 4s are artists, or most of them will be involved in some way in something creative.
So you're a 4.
So then 4s are quite introspective, and they feel very deeply. And what happens with the 4 is they're searching for this connection, which really is a lost connection with the divine, but they're looking for it in the world. And as much as they seem to just get there, it seems to elude them, or when they do, it doesn't seem to be what they were wanting. And so they then say to themselves, this is obviously subconsciously, it must be me. So I then, in feeling inadequate in some way, then create the need to be special. So you can always pick 4s out because they're normally the ones wearing vintage clothing or having a purple streak in their hair or a flower, or in some way to create a difference within themselves, because the last thing a 4 wants to do is be seen as boring. Anything but not boring. And they think a lot about life, and they're very in touch with their feelings, and can be quite temperamental, quite moody. So that's your 4. As I said, they're normally involved in some kind of artistic field, music, being a chef, whatever, anywhere where they can develop their creativity. The thing that people don't understand about 4s is that 4s are often melancholic, but it's not a bad thing with them. They're kind of happy in that melancholic space. It feels almost safe and comforting to be in that space. So that's your type 4.
So they would enjoy alone time.
They would very much enjoy alone time, very much so, particularly if they had a 5 wing, where they're known more as the bohemian. 4 with a 5 wing bohemian, and 4 with a 3 wing would be the aristocrat, where they might really see work as a bit of a curse. You know, it's like, I'll do what I want to do when I want to do. And they bring a lot of beauty and appreciation of all that's beautiful, and they love to have beautiful surroundings and create beauty in their lives. And they can't understand those who just don't get that, because it's so important to them. Okay. And then we move on to the thinking types, the 5, 6, and 7. And when there are issues to do with fear. Now, fear is always projected into the future because you're afraid of what could happen. So they're the future-orientated types, and they would think their feelings.
Okay.
Okay. So when you get to a 5, they're the intense cerebral kind, and knowledge is power. So they keep fear at bay by knowing more. So they love research, they love specializing in certain things. They will always have a little cave or place at the bottom of the garden or wherever that's their kind of space that they can go to. Issue with them is avarice, but it's not necessarily a greed for stuff, but it's more greed for their time. So they get very twitchy if people are perceived to take up their time. Don't do small talk. You'll find them usually sitting nearest the exit so they can make a quick getaway. and they'll kind of arrive late and leave early because there's always some project they're working on that they need to get back to. So that's very important for fives. And they have this, they're called the observer, because they kind of enjoy observing life from a distance. So they will have the experience and then kind of go home and savor it, but not necessarily at the time. They like specializing in fields that other people haven't specialized in and building up a body of knowledge in that field. It's not that they don't feel, but sometimes they have a disconnect from there. So they're like a computer head disconnected from the body.
Right.
So part of their healing would be to do body work, to integrate into the body, and to realize that, in fact, there can be more to life than just the acquiring of knowledge. You'll often find that many of them love bird watching. So if you go to bird watchers, you'll normally find a lot of fives, because it's all about watching what's going on out there without having to actually experience it in here.
So just on that, relationships between these personality types. So let's say you have a father that is a 5. That father might understand the daughter that's a 4 and the other way around.
Yes.
Is that true? So you've got a better understanding of the person closest to your
side. If they were to
side.
have that wing,
Right,
yes.
right. If they were to have
If
the
they
wing.
would have that
so you
wing.
could have a 5 with a very strong 6 wing and nothing really creative or artistic around them
Yeah.
at all.
Then
And they wouldn't understand
They
the
wouldn't,
creative,
no.
artistic child.
No.
Okay.
And likewise, it's also about the numbers that you move towards.
Right.
So 5 moves towards 8. That's when they take all the knowledge that they've acquired and they take it into the world and they start talking about the knowledge. If they're disintegrated, then they'll say, pearls to swine, no one needs to know the stuff. They're too dumb to understand, kind of thing. And when 5s go to 7, sorry, I made a mistake just now, it's 5 to 7. When 5 goes to 7, they become scattered. They start projects, but they never finish them. They start thinking that no one else out there is intelligent enough to get it. And very often at that very disintegrated stage, it's impossible to get because there isn't actually anything to get. It's a confused mass of ideas. So they become more focused when they move towards that 8 part of them.
Okay, so I'm now confused.
Okay.
Because you corrected yourself, but at which junction of your explanation?
So
Just
5s
take
move
it
to
one-
8.
5 moves to 8 when they're integrated. And to 7
yeah.
when they disintegrate.
Yeah, I don't like to put it like that because sometimes 5 can take on the more integrated aspects of a 7 as well, so they can start learning to let their hair down a bit and enjoy life like a 7 would do. But traditionally the thinking's been that yes, they would move across to an 8 and take that knowledge and share it with the world.
Okay. So when they disintegrate, which you don't like, that's when they move to a 7 and they want to hold on to their wisdom.
They can also move into the disintegrated 8s where they become secretive and hermit-like and they retreat into themselves, planning revenge on the world,
All right.
So
This
that
is
would
really
be
complicated. It's fascinating.
It's-
Please tell me more. What does it say about my personality? Like, if knowledge.
Yeah, there's so much more to this that it's very difficult to take it all and put it
Right.
into a couple of sentences, but that's what
Right.
we're trying to do.
So just on that, practically, it sounds so far like I'm a 5, but I'm not really just a 5.
I would say, looking at your environment, there's definitely 4 happening there. Could also be some 6 as well.
Okay, so tell us about the 6 then.
6s are the most ambiguous of types. So they can be this today and then change that. And they call them sometimes the devil's advocate. And also they're known as the loyalist because 6s are incredibly loyal. If you've got a friend who's a 6, they're going to be your friend for life. You have to really mess up badly not to have them there. They're very compassionate because this ability to see the other person's point of view, they can feel what the other person's feeling. So it's like an empathy.
Right.
So they make good psychologists and therapists and things like that. They can suffer towards paranoia sometimes if they're not so healthy. Depression is another thing, but there are other numbers that also have depression, obviously. But it usually comes from an outside source that they get depressed, as opposed to a 4 where something happens inside. It'll be something internal. 6, it's normally outside.
Right. So a life event, like a loss of a loved one, for example.
Look, I think anyone's going to get depressed after that. But 4s can just get depressed for no particular reason. Whereas a 6 would do it because someone might have done something or said something or whatever. So what they do is, because they're a fear type, they tend to look towards people, organization, structure to give them security, because because they're afraid, security is what they're after. So they try to sort of scan the horizon to see what could possibly go wrong, and then try and prevent that from happening. Or how would I deal if my wife left me, or my boss fired me, kind of thing. And they say that they often hear all these voices in their heads, these people telling them, do this, do that. Phone a friend was invented for a 6, because they have a deep, deep sense of knowing. But when they are not healthy, they don't have the personal power to listen to that sense of knowing. So these are the people who know when they get on the aeroplane that, hold it, I must get off this plane now, it's going to crash. It's that kind of knowing. So the more they learn to trust themselves and trust their knowing, the more intuitive they will become. They have a wonderful sense of humor, 6s, but it's normally self-depreciating. And the reason for that is because they want to tell people that, hey, don't get, intimidated by me. I'm actually quite nice. I'm friendly.
Right.
In all numbers, you get a counterphobic type, which goes against the natural orientation. So in 6's instance, where it's most obviously seen, it's the guy who might be petrified of big waves, but becomes a big wave surfer to prove to himself that he's not afraid. Andy Irons was a good example of that.
All right.
But then obviously, as the tension and stress of keeping that fear at bay becomes more and more, then you have to turn to various substances or something to try to maintain that sense of okayness. So for a 6, it's a lot of their life journeys about learning to trust themselves and trust other people as well. That the ground is actually quite secure.
Okay.
So 7s, you want to have a party, you want it to be a success, phone a 7. They are taking this fear of pain that they have and thinking that the more busy I can be, the more things I can do, the more stuff I can plan, the more then I won't have to feel that pain. So there's actually quite a feeling that they're almost deprived with the 7, because nothing is ever enough. The Buddhist saying about the hungry worm is very true for a 7. So I might come to you for cocktails, but then I need to go so-and-so for the party, and that afterwards, and nothing really is enough. And they call them epicure. Because
so I can get no satisfaction for them.
Because they normally gourmands of the world. They love food because food gives you exciting experiences. So let me just taste this little chocolate that's been handmade from there, and drink this wine, or the cheese that's been made in a certain way. So they normally love that stuff. What's scary for them is when they can't run anymore. When they have to slow down and face the pain and face the paranoia. That's very, very scary for a 7. Some people can see them as being superficial, because it appears as if it's all about the party and all about the next thing, and so on and so on. But if you, once again, view them with a compassionate lens and see that that's all they're trying to do is escape from reality in one way or another, then you could maybe hold their hand and allow them to still and quieten down, because when they take on attributes of a healthy 5, that's when they learn to focus more, to be less scattered, to actually finish a project. They're great visionaries, 7s. If you have a company and you're looking for Richard Branson type, then you hire a 7. But don't ask them to do the detail, because that's something they might struggle with. And that pretty much wraps up the main types.
But can you link the personality to the body type as well? Do sixes look more or less the same and fours look more or less the same?
So traditionally, personally, I look for ones they're often quite rigid in their bodies and they have a sort of thinner lip tightness about them. And you'll never find them with a splodge on their shirt or anything like that because they would go home and change. It's very important to them to look neat and tidy and like that. Twos, I find, tend to be more voluptuous. They have softer features. So yes, but it's only a general rule. I think it also breaks down into some of the other things that you that you divide the Enneagrams into.
Last question.
Yeah.
What are you?
Me! No, I'm a 9.
You're a 9. And
Nice 9.
And your wing?
I didn't have a wing for most of my life, but much to my husband's horror, I've recently started developing an 8 wing. And that is that part of me that's coming out and voicing an opinion and saying, actually, no, this doesn't work for me.
Okay.
So I don't now let people walk over me the way I might have done in the past. So I see it as a healthy thing. Not sure everyone does.
Thank you so much. I'd love to have you back. I believe you've written a book, another one. Yes. So I look forward to having you back and discuss this book on the Enneagram.
Thank you so much. Thank you.